Hello, and welcome to My Father's Long, Long Legs. Already I hate it. Makes me think of Daddy Long Legs. Does anyone remember Daddy Long Legs? Like not the flying fuckers, the spidery looking things that I don't think are technically spiders. I remember hearing that once a long time ago, and I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't seen a Daddy Long Legs spider in probably like 10 years. It's been like, I'm in an apartment right now. It's been like two moves at least since I've seen one. I never saw one in the previous house, and I did in the house before that, but very rarely. And the one before that, which was like the first house I lived in, that was, I saw them all the time. Yeah, I haven't seen one in ages. Do they still exist? Did they ever exist? Was that a mass hallucination that I experienced? Let me know in the comments. But regardless, let's play this game. An interactive horror story about family, unease, and loss. Created in blah, 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 blah. Best with headphones, no loud noises or screams. Thank you for that. You're receiving an error on click-through. Twine uses cookies. Okay. Okay. Um. Note, this game requires a mouse. Yeah, no shit. Oh, touchscreen, yeah. My family lived on the southern edge of a certain Midwestern industrial city in an old house, old enough that its basement still had a dirt floor. Is this a text adventure? I was not yet old enough to openly question my parents' behavior, but certainly old enough to recognize its oddness when my father began digging. Yearn for the mines. I understand. Have you seen those videos of like boy on beach starts digging hole, other boy comes along, asks what he's doing, joins in the hole digging, and then just it grows from there, and you got like 10 kids, boys, all digging a hole, and the girls are just utterly baffled by this behavior. It's like thinking of Rome. That's how you identify someone of the male persuasion, I think, is as close as I can get to saying what you probably know I'm trying to get at on YouTube. The way you know if someone is male is, do they think of Rome on a daily basis, and do they enjoy digging holes? That is the only way to know for certain. Everything else is just visual and auditory hallucinations. Did I mention it's like 4 in the morning and I am very loopy? I have no tea. Shit. Digging. I retain only a single clear memory of the time before the situation became alarming. My father forsook sunlight forever. Based. I am sitting at the bottom of the wooden stairs that led down to our basement. Ahead in the dimness stands my father, up to his waist in the hole. Still in his dark blue uniform from the factory, skin and fabric blackened by the hot breath of machinery and fur smudged by the damp earth, got black lung. Good for you. He's breathing in the soot and the charcoal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my other video, or um maybe that video didn't actually come into existence. Maybe it will in the future. Who knows? I don't. I watched Father with the satisfaction of a child who sees in her parent a well of limitless capability. Upstairs, my mother called out that dinner is done. My father takes one last shovel of earth, turns it over the side of the excavation, and, in a single incredible motion, crawls out of the hole simply by pressing the sole of his boot to the lip of the pit and moving his whole body upward, walking right past me, right up the stairs. Up to his weight? No, that seems legit. I feel like I could do that. My limbs are flexible. He was always a tall, angular man, as the remaining pictures of him suggest, And to this day, I can clearly conjure the marvelous image of my father's long, long legs striding over me as he emerged from the hole he was to spend years digging beneath our house. Apart from him, there were three of us: my mother, my younger brother, and myself. Let's find out about Mother. There are many things about my mother I do not understand. She first found my father attractive, she admitted to me many years later, because of how unusual he was. He had come to the Midwestern industrial town and secured a job at the same factory where my mother was working. Is this a fucking Soviet workhouse? Though a practical man, he read constantly and voraciously in subjects ranging from engine repair to philosophy, a habit instilled in him, he had claimed, by his own parents. I'm very confused by how this came. What was it saying about atmosphere? Like, nothing's happening. Why do I still have this at the top of my screen? I don't need that. This was all my father ever said of his family before, beyond us. Any further inquiry into the subject caused him to leave the room or bring up some other pressing issue. Mother once theorized that father had run away from home. Whatever the reason for leaving his family behind, my father did not wait too long before beginning a new one. He was only a few months after my parents were married. This is boring as fuck. I hope this is a video. Within a few years, father made enough money that my mother could stay at home and watch me over me. Very based. Can't do that anymore, can you? It's all part of the plan. I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories right now. Not too long after, stay at home and watch over me. Not too long after my brother. There when wait, what? Oh, okay. Yeah. Then one night, when my brother was perhaps only a year old, father came home, pulled a brand new shovel from his back of his pickup truck, and descended into the basement where he began to dig. At first, he told mother that he was preparing to put down a cement floor, suggesting a prelude to a full or partial renovation of the house. As a child, the movements of adults were still largely mysterious to me, and I do not know the specific circumstances under which mother realized this motive was untrue. This is going on forever. Nor do I know exactly what transpired when my father told mother that they must go to the basement to discuss the matter closer to its source. For after the door shut behind them, my brother and I were left alone in the house. Alright, he was digging a grave. My brother cried most of the night while I lay in my own bed, pillows pressed to my ears. The next day my mother reappeared. Oh, never mind. Quietly prepared our meal, then locked herself in her bedroom shortly before father returned home and commenced digging once again. My father, for his part, stopped sleeping in the bedroom with her, instead taking to the basement, a decision which coincided with the first signs of his terrible metamorphosis. Don't like that. The changes were slow but noticeable. Father began to grow paler, and by the time the factory closed and he could spend the whole day in the basement, he was as white as chalk. Perhaps it was this general evidence of wear, the change in skin tone and his subsequent emaciation, that made him look taller, as if his height increased in proportion in the depth of his project in the basement. He is not getting that good vitamin D or black lung. Very, very unhealthy. Meanwhile, my mother put my brother in preschool and sent me to a latchkey program while she worked to support us in what seemed to deliberate contrast to my father. She grew somehow darker and smaller. My father dug uninterrupted in the basement for at least a decade, and once I started high school, he did not leave the basement to join us for dinner. Then my mother left him. This is just depressing. Father was sufficiently enveloped in his life task that there was no need to replay the arguments from my childhood. Whatever desire he once had to keep us home, with him had apparently fallen away, lost in the depths of the pit. On her own, Mother seemed to physically decompress. I thought that said decompose. To become less bowed, she spoke more, laughed more, she had friends and lovers. We did not see my father at all after we left. Is there a game to this, or is it just infinite text? On the day we left for good, he did not even come out of the basement, though by that point it was questionable how easily he could get through the doorway. So tall he had grown. It was not until many years later that my brother suggested we pay a return visit to our father's house. Needless to say, my brother and I had different experiences of our early home life. Let's go with brother. I already know what your deal is. My brother was young enough when my father began digging that it seemed to him an indifferent fact of life. It seemed obvious to me that something was wrong with our home. Its wrongness was screamed, I thought, by a chilly terseness, terseness, with which our mother moved through it, returning home from work in the late afternoon, serving meals, and retiring to our bedroom. The wrongness was screamed, of course, by my father, who, after losing his job at the factory, spent nearly all day in the basement, emerging at irregular intervals to eat and use the toilet. This was to say nothing of the physical changes he underwent as time went on. The wrongness is screamed by my own actions, and heavy worry I felt that at any moment the fragile equilibrium of our home would be upset and my brother's friends would witness the terrifying truth of our family situation. It is so late, my eyes are starting to get blurry. I'm gonna have trouble reading this. A situation I myself could not begin to articulate, but which I felt ashamedly that an outsider would. Hmm. Of course, my brother, young as he was, saw nothing wrong with inviting his friends to our home, and even taking them down to the basement to see what he called, after our father's example, I believe, the renovations. The friends never asked to return to the basement after my brother took them down there. No kidding. Some of them quietly uh, deigned to never return to our home at all, much to my relief, though my brother was often disappointed. I recall only one instance when my brother was perhaps 7 when one of his playmates made a scene. Is this video enjoyable? God, please tell me it is. I don't even know if this is going to be a video. I believe my brother's friends came from a religious family, which may have been part of the problem. You're living in a Midwest industrial town. I guarantee everyone's a religious family there. But that may also be something I recognize only due to my own biases. At any rate, though his cosmology was different from my own, he at least shared some of my anxieties when he attempted to explain to my brother that our father's project in the basement was deeply unnatural. Nice pun. I emerged from the living room because down the hall I could hear crying. I knew that my brother had a friend over, and so was prepared for the worst. The two boys stood outside the door to the basement, which stood open. My brother looked up as I approached, at a loss as to how to comfort his weeping companion. You're going to hell, our visitor informed me, after I managed to get him to look at me. That's where you're digging to down there, the child said, looking from me to my brother. He's digging to hell, and you're all going with him. My brother did not invite as many classmates over after that day, and I don't believe he ever invited any of them down to see the renovations ever again. Are we going to hell? He asked me one night, lying beside me in bed after a nightmare sent him to my room. I told him I did not know. But is that where Dad is digging to? He asked. I told him there was no such place. Then why is Dad digging? In the early days, when I sat on the stairs and watched him work, my father had given me a dozen of flippant reasons for his project: seeking dinosaur bones, expanding the basement for a spare bedroom or a recreational space, looking for buried treasure, hoping to strike oil, suspecting a natural hot spring flowed beneath our house. All these excuses had lost currency by this point, of course, he, and when asked what he was doing, as my brother told me, his religious visitor had inquired, my father had other things to say. This is not the real world, my father said, or something along those lines. What we think is the real world is just a layer of dirt caked around the true core of the universe. He's digging to Agartha. He's beginning to believe. And what is dirt? Inert matter, dead weight, the remains of those who came and went before us, content only to further press down upon creation with their waste. There was a time when human beings were giants walking upon a small earth, but now the earth has grown fat and hateful with our soil, while we have grown small. Starting here, I am scraping away this sediment, our coagulated filth, and returning us to our original glory. I assemble this manifesto from memory, from various iterations and variations Father offered us over the years. And certainly it was the sort of heresy that had offended my brother's erstwhile friend. Still, they were not satisfactory answers to us then, and it would not be satisfactory for my brother as he huddled, fearing hell in my bed. But frankly, I had no other answer for him, and let the matter lapse into silence. Which is perhaps why all these years later, he urged me to come with him back to our father's house. Of course, my experiences played a part in my eventual decision. A year or so before we left my father was the last time I ventured down into the basement. My brother was out with friends, having reached the age when he finally realized the awkwardness that resulted from bringing visitors to our home, and Mother had locked the door to her room, apparently gone to bed. Excuse me. Father was, of course, laboring in the basement, and I was doing homework in the living room while watching television. Then there came a knock at the door. The man on the porch was squat but dressed neatly in a suit, coat, and hat. A pair of very small spectacles was perched on the end of his nose, looking minuscule in comparison to his large round face. "Hello, young lady," he said to me in a labored voice. "Is your father home?" "Who are you?" I asked. The man tipped his old-fashioned hat back on his head, smiling with rubbery lips. "You would have no reason to know me, of course," he said, "but I'm your uncle." I left the man on the porch, the door locked, while I went to seek my mother's help. Thus I discovered she was unresponsive, and she often was in those days. This left me with only the option to summon my father from the basement. He did not respond when I opened the door and yelled down, though I thought I could hear faintly the sound of his digging. I looked back at the front door, where I could see through pebbled glass the rotund figure of the man who claimed to be my uncle, and descended the wooden stairs into the basement. The only light, as always, came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. My father had learned to operate in these conditions, but for me the lack of illumination cast the labyrinth below into a mess of confusing and seemingly contradictory paths of damp black earth and only slightly blacker shadow. Anyone fucking bored yet? God, this is dull. Father had, I mean, it's intriguing, but I was kind of expecting, like gameplay, not just an interactive story where I get three choices of whose experience to list and in what order. I was really expecting more than this. Father had first attempted to dig straight down, but as the years went on, he elaborated his original plan, angling outward from the center of the basement at a depth of perhaps 15 feet. From there, he had begun to hollow out the entirety of the basement with one long looping path, threaded and bent around itself like some monstrous length of viscera, all the while continuing his march downward. I stood on the bottommost stair that, as I thought of it, still probably belonged to our house. By my feet was a stack of unfamiliar books. They were old, with blank but warped brown covers. Next to them was what appeared to be antique child's rattle, caked with dirt, and several rocks chipped with various unnatural but vaguely instrumental shapes. I turned to the void and called for my father. No response came, but I grew more certain that I could hear, however distantly, the sound of father's shovel. I called for him again, this time giving also my purpose for interrupting his work. "There's a man at the door," I said. "He says he's my uncle." I stood and waited, and as I did so, the sound of digging stopped. My father emerged a minute later or so later, unfolding himself from the narrow bends of his maze, his pale skin covered only by the rags of his clothing, and everywhere dusted gray with soil, including, I noted, the corners of his mouth, which seemed stained particularly thoroughly, and much more darkly. "Your uncle," father rumbled, not quite asking a question. He then added, "My brother?" I nodded. "Show him in," he ordered. The squat stranger, my uncle, who I remembered smelled of sour milk, seemed elated at his prospects. I led him down to the basement stairs, his agitation growing exponentially until he saw my father standing at his full height. It must have been at least 8 or 9 feet then, I think, at the entrance of his renovations. I knew to take my leave, and as I ascended the stairs, I heard the visitor remark on that my father seemed to have done very well for himself, all things considered. Normal reaction. I never again saw the man who claimed to be my uncle, either that day or any other day, any day after. Perhaps not coincidentally, this is also the last clear memory of my father, and the one that returned to me many years later when my brother suggested we return to our father's house, finally getting to the point. Jesus Christ, I am so bored. It seemed my brother wanted to put his mind at ease by checking up on father, who had been left alone now for slightly longer than we had lived with him. On the one hand, I appreciate my brother's sentiment, even if I felt it was misplaced. On the other hand, I knew I could not stop him. His feelings towards father had always been more lenient. The only yeah, because he's also a boy. He understands the power of digging holes and the everlasting search to Agartha to find the people of Rill and conquer the surface world alongside them with their magical powers. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about anymore. That is a thing. Look up what is that book called? I haven't read it. I just looked into it because the music I listen to uh mentions it occasionally in one particular song. Anyone who knows what song I'm talking about, comment. I'm very curious if how many people are into the same music I am. I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to initiate that and get criticized. I think it's The Coming Race, is what the book is called. Or no, it's just called Rill, The Coming Race. Weird, like, I think it's like 19 somethings esotericism and occultism stuff. It's funky. I should buy it. I should get that book and read it at some point. Anyways, it seemed my brother had put his mind at ease checking up. Starting that over, it seemed my brother wanted to put his mind at ease. No, I finished that already. The only question was, would I go along with him or let him make the visit on his own? Go with him, obviously. I feel like if he goes alone, the story kind of ends here, and for God's sakes, we need a payoff to this. We decided upon a day to visit our childhood home where we assumed our father still lived, and decided to meet there one afternoon the following week. But there must have been somewhere, but there must have been, but there must have somewhere been a miscommunication. That is how you formulate a sentence. I was late. I must have been late. Uh, the alternative is that, for his own purposes, my brother arrived early to see our father before I did, and I do not wish to contemplate why that would be. The town was considerably less industrial when I had been there. Gentrification, it's a real problem, though the taste of industry still laced with our water and air. The old neighborhood, not the most affluent even in former times, had fallen into further disrepair. Okay, anti-gentrification. Don't worry, the hipsters will be there shortly to spruce it all up and extradite the poors, and it will be significantly worse off for it. You know what? I don't care how terrible of a video this is. I've gone on enough non sequiturs that I think this will be funny enough to enrapture the viewers. Do I become more articulate? What is the word? Not articulate, elaborately spoken as I get more exhausted. I feel like I'm using more unusual words. And that is not intentional. Anyways, the town was the houses up and down the block stood weathered, and it seemed empty. The sidewalks buckled around thick protrusions. I am losing the ability to read. Of sickly weeds, which reached out into the potholed street, protruding fingers of the overgrown lawns. Why did it say headphones were encouraged? There is no audio. We've got to be reaching a conclusion at some point here, and there's been no audio whatsoever. The only sign of habitation was a single car, my brother's car, parked outside our old home. The doors were locked, the windows rolled up. A hand pressed to the hood told me it was not warm. Oh, okay, I see. People are awake. But apart from that, I had no way of guessing how long the vehicle had been there unattended. Ahead, the house waited. It seemed not much different from the rest of the building, scraped down to gray bones by the elements. The windows were gone, without even slivers of glass remaining, and the porch had bowed. I don't know why I've been saying bowed like that. It's bowed, or bowed, I don't know. And now held a stagnant pool of rainwater. The front door stood open at an angle, its lowermost hinge having rusted and snapped in two. My eyes are not focusing anymore. Let me try again. Stepping carefully, on the rotten porch, I slipped inside and found myself in the old living room. The floor was littered with trash and chunks of plaster dropped from the ceiling. The television was gone, though a lighter patch in the shredded wallpaper marked its former location. The couch had collapsed and now seemed covered with mounds of some sort of gray mold or fungus. Ahead was the central hallway of the house, and I could see that the door to the basement had been wholly removed. I called out my brother's name and then stood for a moment, looking down into unremitting darkness. Of course, the power was out. It was probably disconnected long ago, but a flashlight lay on the floor just outside the basement entrance. Very convenient. It's almost like this is a video game, except it's not. It's a text adventure, but minus the adventure. It's reading. It's a read. I'm so tired. My brothers? That Okay, I'm going to admit something kind of stupid for someone who does a law of writing. I don't know where apostrophes and S's go. Like, there's certain words, like this one. I don't think the apostrophe goes there. Like, yes, it's possessive, but also, I don't know. I never figured out apostrophes. It's like sheet music. Did I ever say this? When I was learning piano back like 10 years ago or something, I literally never learned to read the bass clef. Like the left-handed stuff. I never learned it. I was taught it. I never figured out how it actually worked. So basically what I did was I watched my teacher play the music. Here's how it plays, now your turn. And I just mimicked. I never learned how to actually read that part of the music, only treble clef. So that's a fact about me. The flashlight seemed quite new. I flicked it on and pointed it down into the basement, but it penetrated far enough only to reveal the foot of the stairs. I called my brother's name again and waited. There was still no response. He has joined the whole club. Assuming the basement was anything like as I had last seen it, my brother could have easily gotten hurt if he went down without his flashlight. He might have been lying down there just beyond the stairs, unconscious. I had to make sure. Flashlight ready, I went into the basement. Oh my fucking god, visuals. That is horrible. I hate this. The stairs creaked beneath my feet. This. Somehow this is worse. I reached the bottom, and when my flashlight returned only a slope heading deep beneath the house, I knew my father had done quite a bit of work in the decades since we left. The stairs creaked beneath my feet. I reached the bottom, and when my flashlight returned only a slope heading deeper beneath the house, I knew my father had done quite a bit of work in the decades since we left. I went down. I called for my brother. I walked to the left. I walked to the right. Let's call for brother. I called for my brother. I went down. I called for my brother. I walked to the left. Blah, blah, blah. Only my breathing echoed back through those chambers of barren earth. I walked further into the darkness. Around me there was nothing but darkness. This is getting really hard to read now. I walked further onward. I called for my brother again and received no answer. The path branched left and right. Let's go. I hate this now. Path branched. Okay, I followed the sound of digging. The paths my father had eaten through the earth stretched out in all directions. There was no sign of my brother. I called for my brother again. I followed the sound of digging. I turned right. The musty smell of earth filled my nostrils. I turned right. Where is my brother? I followed the sound of digging. I went left. In the distance, the sound of shoveling did not break its rhythm, as if the digger. Sorry, I just thought of a very. I'm not gonna finish that thought. did not know or care I was there. I followed the sound of digging. I walked further into the darkness. I called from turned right. How about the smell? Inhale the dirt. Get the black lung again. Called from my blah 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 nostrils. Around me there was nothing but darkness. I followed this. Yeah, just follow the digging. Was I going in circles? How would I even be able to tell? I followed the sound of blah blah blah. Call. In the distance, sound of shoveling did not break its rhythm. Oh my god. Oh, did I do the right order? Alright, now I hate this. Can something happen? I did not find my brother. I do not know what to tell our mother. I do not know where to go from here, what to do. It is true I gave up my search, but once I saw what lived there, I had been living there for all of these years, or more precisely what had grown there, I ran from the basement. Somehow by my own luck, or by some other's design, I made it out of the darkness through though my brother was not. Though my brother has not. There is a chance, I think, that he may still be alive. My guilt is heavy, do not doubt that. But it is outweighed by the fear I experienced when I came face to face with the terrible result of my father's attempted renovation of a rotted world. I once told my brother there is no such place as hell. I still believe that to be true. But wherever my little brother is now, what is that song? I recognize it. Oh, I wonder if it's grown as tall as my father. Father's long, long legs. All right then. Can I leave? Thank you. Well, that was an experience. I'm not sure if I liked it. It was very boring. Extremely boring. And I don't really have much to say on it. It was a good story, I guess. Kind of. It didn't really make sense a lot of the time. It did, actually. So, remember how I started this with boys will find any excuse to dig a hole. So the father started digging because holes, they're awesome. Keep digging. Um, and then his brother showed up. And, the mother had no idea what he was talking about, thought he was insane. The daughter here thinks he's insane. Then his brother shows up, goes down to the basement, sees the hole, and goes, "Oh shit, hole, that's awesome. Let me dig a hole with you." And then they both dug a hole because she never saw him again, presumably because he went into the hole too and started digging. And then her and her brother come back, and then the brother goes down there, sees all of the massive hole that his father has dug, and thinks, "Shit, that's actually pretty awesome. I want in on that hole." And he started digging a hole as well. And then the sister, of course, comes down, has no idea what the fuck's going on because women and girls can't comprehend the instinctual desire to dig a hole, the longing for the mines that we all have inside of us. And she just hallucinated all of this when it was this weird elongationification because she could not comprehend the whole and its magnificence. That is my interpretation of the story. Nothing weird happened at all here. This is a totally normal experience. It was so boring. Oh my god, I was like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was actually very interesting. Maybe it's just because I'm reading this at 4:30 in the fucking morning. I have I've been up since, like, I mean, admittedly I slept till 11. But that's because I didn't go to bed until like 2 the night before. And it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. Well, technically it's Thanksgiving the next day, but we're having Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow. Today, I guess. And I need to help with that. And oh my god, I'm so tired. I need to sleep. I'm still working on that animation as well. I don't know when this video is coming out. Maybe that animation is already finished. Maybe it hasn't. God only knows. But I am done with this. So I will say thank you for watching. I don't know how to end videos. So I will just say keep digging. You'll get there. We all know where we're going, but you gotta dig for it. See you in Agartha. I've mentioned Agartha too many times for one video. No, I haven't. I can mention Agartha as many times as I goddamn want. It's my YouTube channel. I can go off on my weird subterranean world rants about giants and holes. The giants! Oh god, I'm turning into Wendigoon. Oh no. Wait, that's good. That is a good thing. Never mind. Yeah, dig a hole and become a giant and gain forbidden knowledge of the universe or something. Inside Out Earth is a thing. Look it up. It's awesome. I don't know. I'm so tired. Fucking please just subscribe or something. I don't know. Bye. Thanks for watching. See ya. Let me sleep. God help me. Bye. All right, and that was whatever the absolute fuck you just watched. I couldn't tell you. I honestly couldn't. I don't know how many of those videos actually turned into videos and how many didn't. And also that doesn't really make sense because this is going to be coming, this little line at the end is happening right at the end of the video. So look, just don't question me. It's 4:30 in the morning and I'm suffering greatly. So I don't know. Look, the reason I'm doing this, there is literally one reason I am here. It's because I forgot to say Happy Halloween. At the end of every video, I wanted to say Happy Halloween because, you know, it's Halloween season, spooky games, yay! I completely forgot about that. So, Happy Halloween to everyone. And to all a good night. I don't. Look, man, I don't know. It's late. I'm going to bed. Bye. Good night. Love you all. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things. Please get me to 70 subscribers by the end of the year. I had 62, now I'm down to 60. I'm losing subscribers. Please subscribe for the love of God. Thank you. And yeah, bye.